There we go. Hello, everyone. This is Yolanda Postel. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am the host of Purposeful Woman Podcast, and today I have my very first guest. It's Christina Kyriakidou. Did I get it right, Christina?
Yes, well done.
Yes, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Thank you. And Christina, she is a relationship mentor and she helps women release their story around relationships and men as well without feeling shame or losing their identity. So Christina and I, we both participated in a online program called Purpose to Platform. And that is where I launched my Purposeful Woman podcast. And Christina is launching her relationship mentor program. So I'm excited to see her progress. But Christina, I definitely want to hear more about you. And I know the audience will want to hear more about you as well. So tell us about your journey and what led you to your lowest point.
Okay, well, that is a tough question because there were so many things actually that led me to my lowest point. I guess where do I start, right? Because I don't think that it is only just one single thing that is leading us to our lowest point, so to speak. It's many different things that either start from our childhood, that influence us, our way of thinking, our way of acting, our way of navigating the world. So it is a conjunction of a lot of things. So in order not to dive too deep into how my childhood was, which by the way was a lovely childhood, regardless of some of the things that obviously didn't go that well. I suppose like every childhood, life has roses and thorns. So it's not all about beauty. So it's about navigating the valleys as well. But one thing that I didn't learn as a child, which then led me to find myself in the situation that I'm going to share with you, is the fact that I didn't have a role model to help me navigate how to actually interact with the other sex. So I grew up in a very conservative household where my parents didn't actually want me to have anything to do with boys. So when actually all my girlfriends and friends in general in high school had their first, let's say, romantic relationships or experiences with the other sex, I didn't, because I was not allowed to have any relationship with the other sex. So that actually created this not knowing of how to actually interact with boys, let's say, right? So I, for a very long time, was what I sometimes call chronically single. So I, for a very long time, wasn't in a romantic relationship. And when I actually found myself in a romantic relationship, I actually didn't know how to comport myself. So I was in a very toxic and abusive relationship that actually led to me completely losing the relationship I had with myself, which then actually in return meant that I completely disregarded my needs and my wants. I didn't know who I was, and I didn't know how the sound of my own voice sounded, right? I didn't know what it meant to actually voice my needs and speak aloud what I wanted. So when I found myself in that relationship, I also found myself struggling, not knowing how to actually handle the situation. I don't know if I answered your question. I think I went off on a tangent here.
No, you did answer my question. And it's very interesting because it is, you know, our parents, God bless our parents, as they say, they do the best they can with the tools that they have emotionally, physically. You know, there, as they say, there is no parenting manual. They come into life just trying their best. And you know, I too grew up in a household that was pretty strict. So probably not as strict as yours, but definitely strict enough. And it is during our teen years and our formative years that we learn to develop those positive social interactions with the opposite sex, and you know, with anybody in every age group. And so you didn't learn that, and so obviously it carried forward into your relationships because you know, I guess if you're not learning how to communicate in a healthy way, or you have discomfort with even communicating with men as a grown woman, then yes, I could definitely see how that hindered your relationships. So what were some signs that you needed, or should I say, did you have a particular pivotal moment, or were there some signs that you began to see within yourself that made you realize that, you know what, I need to make myself a top priority? What were those signs, or what was a pivotal moment, either one, that made you say, you know what, I have to make a change?
Hmm. The funny thing was that I mean, there were lots of signs actually from the beginning, from the very beginning of our relationship, when actually things were still rosy and peachy, but I chose to ignore those signs. What actually then led me to open my eyes to the truth and to the reality of what was going on was the fact that people that were dear to my heart started speaking out and actually pointing out that things weren't right. They noticed that yeah, I wasn't sparkling anymore. I was a shadow of myself, and they asked me what was going on, but I was unable to speak the truth. I was ashamed that I had allowed this to happen to myself. And when I say this, I mean to find myself in a relationship where I wasn't taking care of myself, where I was being manipulated to do things that I didn't want to do. I felt that that was throwing a bad light on myself. So for the longest time, I was actually trying to hide what was going on. And it was actually those friends that alerted me, as stupid as that may sound, alerted me to the fact that something was wrong. They it was like a nudge to at least admit to myself that what I had realized to be wrong, to actually accept that and say, yes, there is something very wrong going on here in this relationship. And but I didn't have the courage to end things. I wanted to. There was many times where I wanted to actually end things, but I just wasn't strong enough. And I believe that I wasn't strong enough because I didn't open up about the truth. I didn't confide in no one to get the help that I needed because shame was holding me back. So I have to say that I was very blessed that he himself ended the relationship. At the time, that didn't seem like a blessing. I thought I didn't know anything but being in that relationship, even though it was terrible. It was like living hell, but I didn't know anything else. So at least that was familiar to me. You know, the hell that I was living was familiar to me. So I was afraid of how life could be on the other side. So when he ended things, I actually was gobsmacked and I didn't know how I was gonna carry on. But after some time, after, let's say, the veil shifted and the emotions started dying down, and I was able to have a clear head and see the situation for what it was, I realized that that was the biggest blessing I could have actually received. So I'm gonna say that the signs were actually friends noticing and speaking up about it and telling me that something was wrong there. And I'm very thankful that they cared enough to actually say it out loud, because I know that it is difficult when you are outside of a relationship to speak to something that is going on behind closed doors, that doesn't regard you, that is between two other people. But people who know you and care about you, and who are actually true friends, will speak up about those things. And I feel very blessed to have had those people in my life.
And that's a great thing that you did have them there for you. And it's interesting too how you allowed shame to stop you from speaking. And shame traps so many people into relationships or situations that just aren't healthy. And they stay stuck in that place of shame. But God does not want us to stay in a place of shame. He wants us to, he's there to forgive us, he's there to help us, he's there to move us forward, right? So I am so glad that you were able to break free from shame and then take the steps to move your life in a positive direction. And when it comes to the family members, I know you're so thankful for them, as they were your lifeline. It seems you may not have realized they were your lifeline, but it appears they were your lifeline, trying to pull you out. And I recently did a podcast episode on family and boundaries, but I did put that one statement in there that this is not related to situations when it comes to abuse, because I've seen a family member in that, and family is the lifeline that shines the light and say, hey, this is a bad situation. And it's heartbreaking for them to witness, because there's so much that they can do to see that person's light go out, because there is life in the eyes. And I'm sure you may have seen it in other people. You look into their eyes and they may be smiling, but the life and the light in their eyes is gone, and you let them, and it lets you know, or you could see that there is really something deep that they're going through, but maybe they're not willing to share. But I am so glad. Well, I can clearly see that you are completely healed from that. And I'm just glad to see that you made the decision to save yourself, to make yourself the priority, and to just live the life that you needed to live for you. And so after you left the relationship, and so now here you are, you're on your own, you're starting over. What steps did you take to heal and develop a healthy mindset? Did you read any particular books, or Did you go to therapy, or did you just create some practices on your own that helped you make it through that season of transition?
Well, God had placed in my heart to start reading a lot. I was always an avid reader. I always loved books. Even as a child, I think I had more friends in books than actually in people. I only later in life developed true friendships. But so he placed that love for books in my heart. And I would say probably 6 to 9 months prior to him breaking up with me, I started reading even more intensely. Gosh, I mean, I couldn't list all the books that I've read during the time, but let me say that they would mostly fall under the category of self-development. So I was actually, and I think that may be actually an interesting sign that often people who find themselves in a toxic and abusive relationship are trying to find the fault in themselves and actually ask themselves, what am I doing wrong? How could I actually be better? And then they try to find the answers in self-development books. And so I started reading a lot of self-development books. That was something that helped me. But also I realized that I had completely, like I said earlier, lost the relationship to myself. I didn't even know who I was anymore, what I wanted, because I was so used to always doing what he wanted. We were always doing stuff that he liked, that I didn't even remember what it was, what I liked apart from reading. So in that time that followed after the breakup, I had so much time on my hands that I had time to actually invest in trying out things. So I tried a lot of things. I tried theater because I felt the need to really express myself. So I actually did some acting. I started trying out lots of sports, and I discovered tennis for myself. And luckily, one of my closest friends at the time, and still close friend now, he is an avid tennis player. So we started playing twice a week, which was great. So I started moving my body again. I started feeling my body again, because that was something I'd lost as well. You know, I had no relationship to my body either. I didn't know what my body needed and wanted. And with that friend, we also started going on culinary trips. So once a week, we would meet to just go and try different cuisines in restaurants. I discovered meditation for myself. I realized that I needed a support net, because it wasn't enough to just have one person in my life. I realized that you can't rely on one person being your everything. You know, that one person, let's say, be it your partner, cannot be your partner, your friend, your confidant, your circle of friends and everything. I mean, it's good to, I'm not saying that your partner shouldn't also be your best friend and your confidant. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that it's great if your partner is all of that, but you also need friends in your circle
Absolutely.
to do things with, whether that is doing sports or just meeting up and speaking or doing other activities, but you need a support net. And I didn't have that. So I realized that my life wasn't full in that respect. So I realized that there were lots of things that actually make up a healthy and happy life. So that is, apart from the, let's say, romantic relationship, it's your social network, it's your health, and that doesn't only apply to your physical health, but your mental health, hence the meditation. It also applies to your financial health, because you have to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. You are responsible for your own happiness. I can't put all that weight onto one person and think that this one person will carry all that weight. So I realized that I needed to invest in all these different pies, let's say. All these little sections make out the whole pie. So I invested a lot of time in cultivating friendships, cultivating my health, cultivating my finances, cultivating my mental health. Unfortunately, and I'm saying unfortunately, I didn't do therapy. I think it would have definitely helped me work through everything a lot quicker. It took me 10 years to get over that relationship. And I'm sure that with therapy, I would have speeded up the process a little bit. I'm not saying that we have to speed up everything, but I think it would have helped me definitely to speak with a professional about what was going on. And it's definitely a consideration that I'm having even now, 10 years later. I'm actually very open to find a therapist and actually work through some of the things that are still, let's say, haunting me sometimes, right? Because I don't think that one can say that healing is a thing, something with an end, with an ending. So it's something that is like an onion. There's lots of layers of healing. You know, I've peeled off quite a lot of layers and I've healed a lot of the issues, but I think I can go deeper, and I am definitely willing to sit together with a therapist and look at what we could tackle together, and maybe also get some advice as to how to navigate some of the issues that I still need to heal.
I love the approach that you took to your healing process, because you took of course, it took time. And I think that's the one thing everybody needs to understand, or should understand, that when we go through a situation that's traumatic, healing is not going to happen overnight. And sometimes we might see a person a year from now and think that they're 100% themselves, and not realize that inside they're still dealing with certain situations. But I love it that you dealt with the physical aspect. You know, you got your body moving and you became creative. You got in touch with your creative side by taking the classes, the acting or drama classes, and getting your body moving with sports, and finding time to quiet time to meditate and read. And I think all of those aspects are important. Dealing with your finances, because of course, when you leave a relationship, when you're in the relationship, you have that little bit of a financial cushion, even though I don't think anybody should ever get too comfortable. But it's learning how to financially just handle everything all on your own again. So I just love it how you took the complete package. You didn't focus on one thing. You took everything that you needed to be whole and worked on each and every one of those areas. Obviously, you probably didn't do them all at the same time. Maybe you focused on one thing here and there, but I'm glad that I met the Christina that I know today. And I'm sure your wisdom is definitely valued by many others. And when it comes to therapy, I think therapy is definitely more acceptable. And I don't know how it was when you were growing up, but I know that there was a time when therapy, especially in the community of people of color, was not looked at as a thing that is positive, or that is a thing that we should do. It was more so, well, keep what's going on with you in your home and don't share it, and therapy isn't necessary. But I think that that led to a whole generation of people. Um, there was a saying that someone said, you know, you're bleeding all over the people that you're trying to help. And so I think it led to a whole generation of people bleeding all over people that they were trying to help, you know, people that weren't healed themselves. Um, so I think it is important to not only do those steps, but if a person needs to take therapy, definitely do it. And of course, I think I don't see anything wrong with a person if they are going through something, be it small or big. Sometimes we just want to talk through something with someone that's not our close friend and not our close family member, but just somebody else.
Yes, totally. Sometimes, I mean, our friends don't have the capacity to listen to our problems the same way a therapist has. And that is not to say to diminish our friends. It's just, it's, you know, sometimes it's too much for our friends as well. You know, they can only help up to a certain point, and it takes the knowledge and the wisdom of a therapist to actually take us that step further. And I totally agree with what you said about therapy having that stigma of maybe sometimes being a luxury, perhaps, right? Of something that only people, I don't know how to say it, but like, I think luxury is probably, for a lack of a better word, the best analogy that I can find at the moment. It's
And I
some,
think there may have been a little bit of stigma. Some people may say, oh, or am I going to be looked at as weak because I need to go to therapy? And I don't think that's the case.
no, it actually speaks of strength and courage. You know, it takes courage to seek help and to have the wisdom to understand that you have come to your wits' ends and you need the support of someone else. So
Exactly.
I'm all for therapy, and I think it's definitely a valuable tool towards healing.
And there was something else you mentioned about people putting, I guess, all their eggs in one basket when it comes to their spouse or significant other. And I 100% agree. Because I know there was a period in time where my husband and we were going through I call it our rocky period, but I realized that I had, you know, I had shut down my friendships. Not that I didn't stay in touch, but I let a lot of things go. And it really highlighted the fact that it is important to keep your connections socially. It is important to keep your connections, you know, if you have a church or organization that you participate in, keeping your connection with them, and just keeping your connection with yourself, and just making sure you are well-rounded and don't let go of your interest to just pick up everything that's theirs, because you can be in a healthy relationship, or you could be in a situation, a person could be in a situation where their spouse passes away. And the key is we just never know what life will bring. And so it's just important for us to just have that well-rounded circle. Um, but I know that I hear that more so with women than men. I don't really, and I could be wrong, but my experience seems to be that a lot of women let go of their interest and pursuits, and um, they just take on the habits and hobbies of their spouse, and whatever they were interested in, whatever hobbies they liked. And it doesn't have to be something that's damaging to a relationship. It could be something like tennis or acting courses, but they let all of that go and just to delve into whatever their spouse or significant other's interest is, and then find themselves like you did later saying, oh my goodness, I don't even know me. And I've had friends say, I don't even know what I like anymore. I don't even know what interests me. So it is, I just think that that's an awesome point, that whether a person, if your person is in a relationship or outside of a relationship, thank you for bringing up that point, because that is important. That's definitely important. And so my next question for you is, do you feel everything you went through, do you feel that it made you stronger and more compassionate to women or men just in general, that may find themselves in the same situation that you were in 10, 15 years ago?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I've always been a person that was looking at the glass half full rather than half empty. I've realized that everything in life happens for me, not to me. And even the most difficult situations have helped me to become the person that I am today. And like I said, they happened for a reason. I needed to make those experiences, and also I co-created those experiences. I don't like the notion of being a victim, because I think that everything in life, I mean, obviously excluding some very extreme circumstances, we are co-creating in some way or form, and I believe that I played my part in whatever happened to me. So I'm only speaking about my experience. I'm not saying that if someone has been the victim of an awful crime or something, or assault or something else, that it was their fault. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I've recognized for myself that for my experience, I played my part in whatever happened to me. And I'm looking at all of that as lessons learned, and it definitely has, what's the word? It definitely has helped me with my empathy towards people finding themselves in a similar situation, because I remember there was a time when I was thinking, how could she allow this to happen to her? She's such a strong and independent young woman. Why would she do that? And then I found myself in the exact same situation, and I had to ask myself, well, how did you allow yourself to find yourself in that situation? It can happen really quickly, and there is no shame in finding oneself in a situation like that. And so, yes, it has helped me tremendously to actually have great empathy for people finding themselves in a similar situation, and understanding what they're going through, what goes through their mind, the emotions that are coming up, and the feelings of despair that may come up as well, feelings of shame, that, like we've said earlier, feelings of deep pain and frustration and even desperation at points. Yeah, I definitely feel for those people, not from a point of I'm up here looking down at you, but from a point of I've been where you've been, and I know how hard it can be and how heartbreaking it is, but from a point of knowing that there is a way out, and that if we have the courage to speak up and actually confide in someone, whether that is a friend or a co-worker or someone in a helpline, just actually speaking it out loud sometimes helps us to make it real. And once it's real, you also realize that something needs to happen in order to change that situation. And that is a great start. So it's about overcoming that hurdle in your mind that there is something to be ashamed about. There is nothing to be ashamed about. Speaking up about it is courageous, and it's what's needed. It's what it's needed. It's to amplify our voices and normalize conversations around finding ourselves in toxic and abusive relationships, you know, not to normalize the fact that they exist, but normalize the fact that we're all human beings and we all can find ourselves in a relation, in such a relationship, and to normalize the fact that it's okay to speak about it and that it doesn't actually throw a bad light on you or makes you less of a human being.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, the key is, like you said, acknowledging that something needed to change and be willing to reach out to get help when needed. And I think that that is something that anybody that may, you know, person that finds themselves in that position, don't allow shame to hold you back. Don't allow shame to stop you from moving forward and seeking the help you need. Anybody that's out there. But I am glad that, you know, you are there. And again, from what you said, it's not a matter of I'm better than you. It's a matter of I feel what you've been through. I understand. I have been there. I know the emotions. I know the pain. I understand what it takes to heal. And I can help you get there. So, now, what would you tell women that are going through the same situation right now? If there was one thing you would tell them, what would that one thing be?
If there was only one thing I could tell them, is to find the courage within themselves to actually confide in someone. That is possibly the one thing that I regret not having done, because for a long, long time, shame and pride held me back. They held me back from speaking the truth and telling what was going on behind closed doors. People were looking at us thinking that we were having the perfect relationship, you know, to most people, especially to people who didn't know us that well. I think you can't really trick people who know you well. They can see if something's off. But to most people that actually didn't know us, we looked like we were having it all, right? So they looked at us as if we could impart wisdom on how to actually have the perfect relationship, let's say. So I regret holding on to that picture, you know, because when you're in a relationship, and especially if you were the type of person like I was, who up until that point had only been in two other relationships. Those other two relationships lasted a little bit longer than 6 months. So when I was in that relationship that almost lasted 8 years, I, in my head, almost held on to that number as well. It was like a trophy that I was carrying, you know, 8 years together, or 7 years together, 8 years together, you know, that's something that is something to aspire to, as if the number was actually validating the relationship, which is absolute BS, you know. It's not about the number, it doesn't matter, you know. But I was holding on to that. I was holding on to the idea of us coming across as the perfect couple, instead of actually seeing the relationship for what it was and speaking up about it. So my advice would be, don't hold on to these things because they don't matter. The number doesn't matter. The idea that you portray outwards doesn't matter. It's not about pretending, you know? It's all about being real and actually living the life that you want. And if the life that you are living is not authentic and it doesn't fill you with joy, then you need to speak up about it. So I would advise them to actually find the courage within themselves to speak to someone about what they're going through, because that will also help them to get some sort of validation, which is, let's say, a good type of validation, because people listening to you will actually validate your feelings of something not being right, and that's what you need. You need someone to have on your side, to realize that, and to not allow the other person to manipulate you to think that you are crazy and that you are making things up. So that would be my advice. Speak up about it, leave pride and shame aside, and you will see that that will change a lot of things. The first time I actually spoke about what was going on behind closed doors with someone, a weight was lifted off me that is undescribable. But unfortunately, it took me years to come to that point. It took me years to open my mouth and be able to say that. So it may sound like a lot, but so maybe just start off by validating yourself. You know, you are not crazy. If you feel invalidated in your relationship, and if you have some doubt, you know, no one needs to validate you. But if you confide in someone and they are on your side, then you know that you are not crazy. I don't know how else to say that, but
You put that well. And I think it's just a matter of us as women letting go of that image of perfection. I think just in general, we as women, we're taught we're supposed to look perfect. We're supposed to, dress a certain way. And as a woman, we're supposed to be like this, and our relationship should look like this. And so we fall into what the society's trap of perfection, looking perfect. And so, there's a scripture that talks about man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. So man looks at how everything is on the outside, but we know what's going on the inside. God knows what's going on in the inside. And it's about letting go of those, the fake images that we've created. And some of that is the fantasy images we've created in our mind. And just letting that all go and acknowledging what is truth, what is real. So, well, Christina, thank you so much for being my very first guest. And thank you for sharing your wisdom. And I know that it was extremely helpful to a lot of women out there. And I know that they can, that there's various ways that people can get in touch with you. What is the best way for people to follow you on social media, or just to get in touch with you if they have any questions?
The easiest way to actually get in touch with me is Instagram. That's where I live on social media. So my Instagram handle is @HeyIt'sFrizzy. And people can DM me on there. That's probably the easiest way to find me and talk to me.
Okay. Well, again, thank you so much for being a guest on Purposeful Woman Podcast. And I'm sure we will have other conversations in the future.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I look forward to future invitations and chat again.
All right. Thank you.